Hello there and welcome to this game review. So in this one, it's quite a short game, but there is something to discuss. And you had some questions about castling or leaving the king in the center. And one more thing I would suggest is that when you're submitting the game reviews, I would suggest submitting the lead chess study that you're analyzing the game in, or wherever else you're annotating your games. And then I will have all your comments right next to the moves, and this will be a lot more convenient for both of us. So instead of submitting the comment, I would suggest doing that. Okay, in this game we have the Caro-Kann, d5, and we have the exchange. Caro-Kann, here it's quite a fixed structure. Black has rather easy development. The only way for white to pose some problems is to not allow this bishop to develop. So for this, white usually plays bishop d3, stop bishop f5. Now both of these squares are taken. And for example, after this, white can even play h3 to take away this square. And of course, black is fine, but he has to solve the problem of this bishop. Usually it's done with g6 and bishop f5. And so after knight f3, the bishop easily gets developed. Knight c3, this is the wrong square for the knight, as this is where the pawn belongs to defend this. And this knight usually goes to d2 later on. Okay, knight c3, knight f6, and then knight h4. So white is trying to harass this bishop, maybe take the bishop there, and black gives it up. This is possible, this is fine, as this bishop is not that important for us, since our pawns will be on light squares. We will have decent light square control anyway. But bishop g4 is perhaps a bit more ambitious, and you mentioned you didn't like this because of f3, but the point here is that now with this move, the pawn will never go back, and this gives white a few problems. Firstly, this king is weakened on this diagonal, and also this one later on. And also, well, we will move the bishop. This knight is now a bit trapped, as it does not have this square anymore. And the pawns will not go backwards, so this is weakening forever. But okay, bishop g6 is fine. Now we lost the bishop pair, but we have decent control over the light squares, and we have no bad pieces. Here, e6, knight c6, a6, so this is all fine, and white is left with the kind of wrong bishop, as well as his knight is on the wrong square again. This knight should have gone to d2, after which it could go to f3 and e5, which is the ultimate destination. But on c3 it is dominated by the pawn on c6, and the pawn on d5. It has no squares to go towards. It could consider going here, but it will be just captured. So white castles, bishop d6, black finishes development, checkmate is threatened, h3, and black plays g5. So at this point, black has to kind of choose a plan. So one plan is to play on the queen side. He can do this with c5 at one point or another, either now or later, to exchange the central pawn for the side pawn, and then he can play rook b8, the other rook can go to c8, and he has quite good play on the queen side, while white doesn't really have too much counterplay, as black has a good center. Now another plan is what black did in the game, is g5, which is a bit more ambitious, threatening g4, which would ruin the structure around white's king, as white cannot take. So white plays f3 naturally, but turns out this weakening of the g3 square is fatal, and already black had this tactic which happened later in the game, which is about sacrificing this rook, and it does require some calculation, as it's not that easy, because here, well, we could think about it this way, that black at least has a perpetual check, right? And if we feel there might be something more, we can go here, and at worst case it will be a draw, which isn't the worst scenario. So king h1, queen h3, and again black can make the draw if he wants, but of course there's something better. And here white's king is terribly weak. All we need is this rook to go to the h file, and we can do this however you want. White cannot stop it at all. King d7 or castles queenside or king e7, and rook h8 simply cannot be stopped, and this will be a ladder checkmate, kind of vertically. So this was already possible, and it was a missed opportunity. King e7. So again, with the king, let's say this doesn't exist. The king can castle, but we must remember what's the point of castling. Right? The point of castling is two goals. First, we want to get the king into safety, And also we want to develop the rook, which is often in the corner. So in this case, we don't need to develop the rook, as it's already developed on the h file. Going here would only be kind of a demotion for the rook. And the king is quite safe on e7, as it has all these pawns and pieces protecting it. White doesn't have any breakthroughs, so the king is quite well placed here. White plays b4, but this misses the threat, and black finds this very nice tactical opportunity. And after some calculation, we find out that white cannot recapture here, and because it's checkmate, which happened in the game, white just simply recaptured. But if he doesn't recapture, then we have just taken the pawn on h3, we can continue the attack. We have a pawn for nothing, so black is just winning. So quite a very good find by black, and the black finishes in checkmate. So quite well played, and hopefully, of course, all of our games go like this. Usually they won't, but it's good to look at such wins and pat ourselves on the back, so to say. So well done, and good luck next time.